Warning. Proceeding with operation in treatment room. Please evacuate immediately.
Stars.
Even though this is only going to be episode 3 of this series on Resident Evil 3, we're actually right here at the end of the game. I think the game ends in about 30 minutes from now. If you aren't doing all that well and you had to do the final boss fight that isn't this, a couple of times. It can happen, I'm not judging. But the Nemesis fight in the, for lack of a better word, the chemical room in the Umbrella facility on the outskirts of Raccoon City, I don't know where the hell this place is not good. I just don't like it, and that's because one of the things that they tried to do to make this boss fight unique and different from the 8 other times that you see Nemesis throughout this game, because as you can see from his design, he's getting more damage as time goes on. Therefore, the T-Virus is fucking up his body and mutating him more, so he's gaining ridiculous superpowers, and his body is starting to shut down as the mutations are growing out of control, and it's just unsustainable biologically. The thing that they added was that on the wall, and you saw this in the cutscene, there are these chemical outflow pipes, these valves that are adorning the entire wall. Now, the wall, the way that the arena is designed, is just a cramped hallway jutting off from the main arena. So, to be honest, this entire part of the boss fight is optional, but other than that, if you don't employ this mechanic that they put into it, that is a weakness for Nemesis, but just not a useful one. It's just your normal, everyday Nemesis boss fight, except he got slightly faster, he has more punch combos, the arena is smaller than the courtyard, so you are going to have to be fighting him more strategically and more frantically, which, you know, works with the natural aggressive build-up they got going for Nemesis as he evolves, which is a good way to tie his character arc to the story of the game, and I do appreciate them doing that. But again, the mechanic. There are these 4 valves on the wall. I think one of them is broken, so you can't use them. The problem is that instead of being spread out all over the arena and being more useful because you would be able to strategize around the valve placement, move around a bit, and just give you a bit more running space while also being able to employ the weak point. Instead of that, they're just all screwed up in this one place. And yeah, I know, that makes more realistic sense for how the facility would have been built, but still, as a gameplay move, it doesn't really help out the player, so that probably could have been redesigned somehow. The way that you employ the valves is that if you shoot them enough while Nemesis is standing in front of them, then the valve will leak, and whatever the valve and the pipe is just delivering throughout the facility will spill onto Nemesis and basically act like acid, dealing massive damage. The problem is that it takes too many shots, there's no visual information from the valve to show that it's working or that you're actually hitting it, because again, this is a Resident Evil shooting mechanic, so noticing where your bullets are going is not exactly the easiest thing in the world to see if you have the angle on, and the hitboxes of the valves are not actually very helpful to the player in telling if you're doing the thing in order to do this weak point combat stuff to Nemesis. Nemesis has been upgraded from the last time we saw him in the courtyard, and the last time we saw him in the courtyard, he could sprint and cover ground like nobody's business. So having these valves be multiple shots in this one tiny spot is just the most backwards ass and ridiculous way to put a weak point into this boss fight for Nemesis, and it ultimately just adds up to saying you should just fight him the normal way and try to duck his punches, thanks to Resident Evil 3 being designed with a actually quite useful dodge mechanic because you don't really have to think about it. Half the time the game just does it for you if you're in combat stance. So the reason that I dedicated so much video to complaining about the weak point thing is because other than that, it's just your regular Nemesis boss fight. And if you've been doing a combat heavy run, then you fought this guy so many times that, you know, even the slight changes that he has from evolving is not going to change it all that much. The arena is nicely designed, it's a good level sort of thing with all the rubble and, you know, the dead scientist and all this machinery adorning the walls. It's a visually concise, sensible place to have a boss fight, and, you know, it fits very well, and I suppose the music isn't all that bad, I didn't really notice it, so at least it did its job right in conveying the urgency of the place. It does the usual Resident Evil thing, so it activated a 5-minute countdown, and if you don't kill Nemesis in that time, then you instantly die, because, you know, that's always fun. It's just that Capcom, if you were going to add new mechanics into the boss fight and show them off specifically in the cutscene, you probably should have made them more user-friendly, and I know the words user-friendly aren't exactly in Capcom's vocabulary, but you can't just get away with doing something like this, because it just doesn't work as intended. At least, we could take the last 3 minutes on the countdown, our ID card, and hopefully make it to whatever escape plane, sub, train, subway is going to be waiting for us, and just enjoy the real ending of the game. The Nemesis second boss fight required is just not as solid as it should have been, and considering Nemesis was consistently evolving over time, it really should have been showing off something new, but it should have been new in terms of quality, not taking that quality away as time goes on.